Okay, I'm going to take one last jab at the Agile Factory model, this time from Scrum perspective. I don't want to bash this model too much because, as I mentioned in other videos already, that organizations wouldn't be using it if they wouldn't think that it would help them. The unfortunate thing is that it doesn't really solve the problems that they might have, and as in this case, we have some misunderstandings of what Scrum is. This one says Agile and not Scrum, and that's actually a fortunate thing because what we're doing here, even though we have a product owner and a Scrum Master, isn't Scrum at all. And I will explain in this video in detail what some of the main issues are. Now, the first thing is product responsibility. The product owner in Scrum has end-to-end responsibility for maximizing value of the product, not just of the work of the team, but of the product. The product owner, in this case, is unable to maximize value because based on this process, they can only optimize the value of everything that has already been specified up to this point, which means they're definitely doing a local optimization and not looking at the bigger picture. So the product owner should have product responsibility starting here and not here. That means we should reconsider the responsibility and the scope of product ownership. And with that one comes the topic of value priorities, because value prioritization happens at this point and it should be done by the product owner, because here they get big packages of work, some of which is highly valuable, some of which is not so valuable. And it becomes impossible for this person in this place to determine whether something that is still in the discovery phase would be much more valuable than the top priority which is available in this place. And of course, to maximize the value of the development team, the product owner would need to look here and say, we'll pull this forward because it's a lot more valuable. The model doesn't really accommodate for this, so that's what we might want to reconsider as well. Another interesting aspect is, what is this? And what is this? Because the scope of sprints based on this diagram is very, very limited, and that means there's a lot of work happening outside of sprints. In Scrum, the sprint is a time box that ends and another sprint immediately starts without delay, and all of the work on the product is done within sprints. In this case, the issue is that here we have different teams, here we have a different organizational unit, and that means that whatever the team delivers here is not really done. And we don't know when it's done because we don't know what happens after we release it. Will we have bugs? Will the release process have issues in itself? What will the user feedback be? And this one is usually an issue because, as I mentioned in another video, when something doesn't work here, it will come back here and it will destroy the plan of the sprint created by the teams when they have too much rework or additional support activity to do. The reason why this is happening is usually because the expertise to do design and prototyping, user experience, or system administration is not available within the team. So we have a skill problem that creates those handovers that we see here. Scrum suggests that the team has to have all the necessary skills in order to produce a done increment, and separating work which the team doesn't have the skills to do is an easy cop-out. It doesn't really produce value. And another issue concerning Scrum is that at the end of iterations, we should always have a shippable increment. The output of each single sprint is a shippable increment. So we have a shippable increment, and looking at this model here, this means we do have shippable increments that we don't ship. There might be good reasons for not releasing. And there are a lot of bad reasons, and the worst possible reason is because we've created big batches of work and we don't have a proper release process. And that is not an excuse to not release. When a product owner says we have customer value, then we need to release. And to say that, but our process doesn't allow us to release, that's an impediment and it should be fixed. Which solutions do we have to all those problems scattered here? The first and most obvious one is that we can restructure the teams. The people working here, and the people working here, and the people working here, they're all contributing to creating working software with high customer value. Now they do this separate from each other for whatever reasons. Is it classical mindset of functional separation? Or is it because there's already too many developers? In the end, it doesn't matter. It's the same amount of people, whether you have 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 people. By restructuring the teams, you don't add a single person. Instead of having maybe like a 6-person design team, 2 8-person development teams, and a 6-person operations team, you might want to consider, well, we have a total of 28 people. That's a great way to create 4 teams of 7 people each. And each team has a design expert, has a system administrator or sysops on board, plus development competency, and it works quite well if you just bring those people together. They will learn from each other, they will exchange knowledge, they will find out what they can do to make their own work better. The other thing here is that because you're not done, it's not clear why this team is constantly suffering from interrupts left and right. The team might just want to make the definition of done they have transparent and show which kind of work happens after the definition of done of the team is completed, in order to create an awareness of how much work is actually going to feed back, how much work is not part of the team. And that's a good basis to lead discussions of how can we create a more comprehensive documentation of done that allows the teams to get closer to truly done. In the ideal state, done means done. That means there is absolutely no additional work to do. And that means by making the current definition of done and the extra work transparent, we can start a discussion of how do we pull any work that happens afterwards into the definition of done. This one is one of my personal pet peeves because this is not a product owner. This is just a requirements manager. That's okay if the organization so chooses, but Scrum doesn't have the requirements manager role. The product owner should have responsibility from here all the way to here. And that means rethinking who is the product owner, what is the product owner's actual responsibility, what do they need in order to bear this responsibility properly. And the first thing, even if you don't restructure, if the product owner does not have the end-to-end responsibility to maximize value, they can't do their job properly. And the last one is, why do you need this kind of model? Because your current structure, your current way of working is based on your current understanding of how an organization should perform optimally, and for each expert in each domain, it's also their current understanding of how to do their best possible job. So you need to invest into learning. A good way to invest into learning here is, even though unfortunately it rarely happens, get a good trainer, bring everybody here together who can work in a single team after you did the restructuring, and say, okay, let's do a proper Scrum training. Let's see how we can reach from idea all the way into done software within a single sprint, and show people that it works in practice in first a training environment, then with a little bit of coaching support in a real life development environment, and from there take steps to continuously learn and improve how you want to be delivering software in the future. And after you've done those things, you're a little bit closer to no longer needing this model. So that's my advice, how to turn this model into proper Scrum.